Horace Gold. Welcome to the Because I Love You podcast.
Thank you, Bria Jones. I'm so honored to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. You're just a hot commodity these days.
You better stop it. I freaked out when you followed me. I was like, I love you, girl. I really appreciate your voice, who you are, your personality. Like flowers, 10 tens, 10s.
Whose guest is who?
No, truly, you're amazing. You're so honored to be here.
No, I'm happy to meet you in person and have this conversation. I have so much I want to ask you. And it's just so timely. But first, before we get into like the nitty gritty stuff, I know everybody wants to know. I want to know more about you because we were just talking about this. Like you popped up on my For You page very quickly. And I was like, who is this over here? And why wasn't I following? Like it was, I found you from what you were talking about in regards to like the election coming up and we'll get more into that. But what were you doing before that I didn't know where you were, who you were?
Yeah, no, so I had started posting like everyone else in like 2020, 2021. And I had been making content that was very like feminist angst content, you know, talking a lot about like periods and how men are uneducated with periods and how like I just, a lot of men piss me off. And I was like really in that space. And so I acquired like, it was like around like 30K followers, but I didn't really realize that was like an actual amount of people because it happened so quickly that I was like, oh, what, everyone gets 30K. And I like realized even more so than that, like not to discredit my 30K, love you. But what I found in myself was that I was needing to generate anger in order to make content that was gonna go viral. And I was like, that is not sustainable for me.
Yeah, it sucks when you realize as a creator, like the emotions they want you to have.
It felt very much like in that time, especially because it was in the midst of a lot of that like 2020 like black rage creator energy that I'd sort of been looped into.
Yeah.
And I knew for me that I'm a goofy goober. I am a hee hee ha ha type of bitch. So I like to pontificate and think deeply and analyze, but like I need to have a good time for my own mental health.
Yes.
And I was just very wary of what I was putting out into the world. We were talking about it a little bit before. Like I don't ever want to like drop a rock in people's lives and be like, here, are you more anxious? Awesome, I've succeeded.
Yeah.
Like that's not the vibe. And so I stopped posting really for about 2 years and I didn't know what I wanted to do on social media. And I had been dating a content creator and he was like, this page is dead. These people aren't engaging. Like you should just start a new page. And I was like, okay, for sure. And so I was like, I already have this platform here. I'll just like use this as like sort of a spam account and I'll post like my art and music and fashion on this other account. And so I posted a video just thinking I was talking into the void. And I was basically explaining that I think that we needed to do some decolonization around our expectations of Kamala Harris and how like immediately assuming that a black woman had your worst intentions at heart was a form of colonization. And that sort of like brought me back into the algorithm. And then after that, I made a video being like, I'm not a leftist anymore. You know, I'm like hardback. And that one really popped off and like brought me back into the fold. And so ever since then, I've been shown to more people, and now I'm meeting all these amazing creators that I'm so humbled to know and talk with. And it's been such a beautiful experience realizing how nice so many creators actually are. I think for a long time when I was like I was just an observer on the outside, I was like, oh, I wonder if this person's cool. And then you like become mutuals with someone and you see their like close friends post. Yeah. And you're like, oh, you are cool.
I think like attracts like too, especially like you start to kind of find your people in that space and you'll learn pretty quickly. we were talking about this at lunch. It's like the people you would least expect aren't the cool ones. The ones who have like no followers. So I think like it's really interesting. Like as you go to the events and like meet people, you'll see. Yeah. But yeah, you're a good person, so you're gonna attract good people.
It's been a really cool experience thus far. And again, I just want to like say thank you for having me. I feel so honored to like share space and time with you. It's truly so humbling.
That means so much. I'm honored to literally have you in this room. Like when I tell you, people were stoked to know you're coming in.
Y'all just have gassing me right there.
Look, we're gonna give you your flowers, okay? But no, that's really cool. So outside of the internet, what were you kind of doing in LA here?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in LA. I went to elementary school around the corner from here. So I'm an actor and a musician. And so, you know, I just audition and work, and that's like my full-time gig. I'm an artist. And so it's I have a lot of free time to just sort of like talk my shit on the internet.
That's so cool though. I was like Googling you and I'm like, wait, he does everything. sing. Like I found a video.
Unfortunately.
I think I found a video from you in high school singing.
Probably. Like
yeah, you play guitar?
Yeah.
Okay, that was definitely
I've done it all. And it is one of those things where I think as the multi-hyphenate, it can get a little like, what do I do?
Yeah.
If I can sing, I can act, I like work as a model, I like now make content, like what the fuck do I do? Like it's really
But I think that's
sometimes.
beautiful because I really struggle with trying to box myself into being like, people are like, what do you do? What's your purpose? Like I like when people don't have one answer. Because what is that? You know, you have so many different passions and projects, and I think that's really cool. And for someone like me, I love looking at people like you and watching what you're doing because it reminds me, okay, I can actually like have other things going on too. I don't have to drive down one lane. But so cool.
Thank you.
Cool for
yeah,
you.
I describe myself as like you know those like multicolored pens from childhood?
Oh, stop. I love it.
I'm one of those.
Yes.
And I just hope that the color I want to be aligns with the color I need to be on that day. Because sometimes you're like, oh, I really feel like writing, but I have like content that's due, or I like really want to like make a podcast, but like I'm in a songwriting session, or like, oh, I would love to act, but like you know what I mean? So it's like, sometimes I'm just working on how to feel calibrated to exactly where I'm at in the moment. Because that's when it really clicks. And you're like, oh, I'm in my purpose. But it's when I'm wanting to do one thing, but I'm doing something else that I'm like, I'm so confused.
But that's honestly a great problem to have, that you have so many things you know you're tapped into. And you're like, which one do I want to do today?
It's a double-edged sword.
You think so?
Because sometimes it can challenge your purpose.
I need more talents. I want this problem.
I think you're chilling. You're a mama, you're a wife, you're a homeowner, you're an icon, you're a Texan.
I know, but I want to like, Tony was telling me I should knit. Like I need to knit.
That is literally the most perfect thing you could be doing.
You know what?
That is it, girl.
I picked the most like mundane.
No, it's perfect. You're entering into your third trimester.
In my second, I got a little bit of time.
When you enter into your third trimester and you are home in Texas,
you're right.
You have to, I think you've signed a contract at this point.
I think so.
You're obligated.
I'm going
to become a knitter.
I'm going to knit you a hat.
Don't play with me.
I'm going to have to.
Do not play with me.
It's the only way I'll commit to the bit is if I knit you a hat.
It's not a bit. This is a lifestyle.
And I'll make a matching one for my babes.
I'm going to cry. I literally will cry if you, my God.
Yeah.
Wait, also, do you know the gender of your baby?
Boy.
Oh my
no
God.
Boy. No, it's literally me and like 3 stinky boys at home.
Oh my God.
My dog, my husband, and now.
And what? So you're 4 months out?
Yeah. What the heck?
So he'll be a Aries, probably?
Yeah. Potentially Pisces. We were trying to. It depends.
If I was a woman and had a baby, I'd be like, December 4th, I want a Sagittarius. Cut him out of me.
No, but listen. Okay, what's your sign? I don't want to.
I'm a Sagittarius.
Okay, I didn't want to offend you, but I was like, we're not having a Gemini.
I'm not having Scorpio.
So yeah. Wait, I'm Scorpio.
A Scorpio man.
Okay, fair.
A Scorpio man.
Fair.
Go to hell.
Yeah, I've heard about
One-way ticket to Satan's lair.
The only Scorpio man I'm aware of is Diddy. So I'm like, enough said.
With thesis confirmed.
Enough said.
I swore to myself I've never dated a Scorpio man ever again.
I respect it. I respect it. I think Scorpio women, I think we get looped in with the men.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
But we project just like bitches. Like if we're not like, oh my God, if I don't turn it on, I'm like, I look scary. I've realized that. It's just the aura.
It's the aura. No, there's no aura with the Scorpio men.
We're soft on the inside.
It's all real. There's no. Scorpio men are truly a devil-sent voodoo doll.
Ooh, the way you're working that neck, drop a name.
They're a voodoo doll.
I know you have a name.
I know. Fuck you.
Bleep it out.
Ex-man. Bleep it out because I'm going to say some real shit. That man, I had never known gaslighting.
Oh my God.
To the point where I was like, what is my name?
No.
What day is it?
Oh no.
Am I American? I don't know anything.
And was it just this one, or were there other Scorpio men?
It was about 3.
Do you have a type?
Unfortunately. I'm trying to break out of it.
Okay.
Again, let me preface, I was socialized in private schools in Los Angeles. So I have been conditioned and programmed to be attracted to brunette white men who are 6'3". I'm sorry. It's not my fault. Blame George W. Bush. Don't blame me. Don't blame me.
I resonate with it. You know, I went to school in Arkansas. It was slim pickings. I didn't really have. I didn't have too many choices, but I feel you.
Blame Condoleezza Rice, not me. It's not my fault.
Condoleezza.
Condoleezza?
Come to the podium.
I need a rebate check for all of the years of therapy. So
I
no,
can't.
Republican parents and the 2004 administration have cursed my dating type, and so I have taken a retroactive stance that I do not date Scorpio men.
Fair.
Because y'all are demons. Truly.
I wish they had a different name for their sign.
Satanists.
Yes.
They played with Ouija boards when they were 4 years old. I don't think we can keep workshopping this, but public enemy number one is what we can also just call it.
I'm going to give you that. So as some of you know, my husband AJ and I are moving into a new house, and I was devastated. We had to get rid of a good portion of our cookware that was falling apart and in general just not great quality. So we ended up upgrading to Caraway, and you guys, I could not be more excited to get in the kitchen in this new house. And it's honestly perfect timing because I really want to get in my homemaker era and throw down this holiday season, and now I have the tools to do it. Caraway's cookware is a great investment because not only is every piece beautiful, but you're getting cookware that's made with non-toxic products, and it's designed for easy cooking and cleaning. Caraway's internet famous cookware set comes with the saute pan, fry pan, Dutch oven, and saucepan, plus the lids for all of them, a canvas lid holder, and magnetic pan rack for storage. It's the ultimate kitchen setup and will save you $150 versus buying the items individually. You can visit carawayhome.com/BCILY to see all of your favorite products and take an additional 10% off your next purchase. This deal is exclusive for our listeners, so visit carawayhome.com/BCILY or use code BCILY at checkout. Caraway, non-toxic cookware made modern. Okay, so you said private school.
Yes.
Was it like a religious private school? Like, give me the deets on that.
So it's complicado. I was homeschooled by Republican conservative Christian mom, my mother. Yes. And I'm the youngest of 6 kids. And so we were all homeschooled. My upbringing is this like wild juxtaposition within itself. Like we were homeschooled, but we're from the hood. But my siblings and I went to school. It was all the very nice private schools in Los Angeles. So we didn't have wealth, but we were adjacent to wealth. We were near poverty, but we also weren't poor. And so it was a lot of like yes, no at the same time.
Kind of like in the middle of all
of
that.
It all. You know, so I'm like seeing the gangbangers on the street and then like going and Steven Spielberg's buying me an ice cream when I'm 6 years old. Like, just like weird high lows my whole life. And so I was homeschooled until I was 4th grade, so like 9 or 10. And I went to a school around here called the Center for Early Education, where like Magic Johnson's daughter was like my girlfriend when I was in 4th grade. Like that type of shit, you know? And then I couldn't handle it. I was like, I hate school. I was just this like extroverted child who just wanted to play. I didn't really want to be in like the school environment. I've never been like a very scholastic person, but very smart, but just like not in like traditional schools. It never worked for me. And so I bailed, went back to homeschooling from the rest of 4th grade until 9th grade. And then went to a private like art adjacent school near the beach in like Manhattan Beach area. Went there 9th to 10th grade, non-religious at all, and then wanted to be a rock star, went on American Idol at 16, dropped out of school, and then graduated high school early and started making music professionally.
Wow.
And then I went to music school in Boston and went to like a bougie jazz conservatory called Berklee College of Music. And then hated school again, dropped out after a semester, moved back to LA and started writing songs and modeling, and then
does it all.
Started acting, and now I don't do any of that shit.
No, you've gotten to live so many fun lives. I think that's amazing. Auditioning for American Idol, like what year was that?
That was 2010 and 11. So it's like this like young, I'd never sung in front of like more than 100 people. And
Wow.
like, you're in the top 30.
Top 30?
Top 30 guys. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Made it like pretty far.
So you got to get the ticket and everything?
Yeah, I like went to like, I made it past Hollywood Week into like Las Vegas. We like got flown to Vegas.
Did you get to, I didn't know if this was just for the cameras. Does everyone audition in front of like Simon, Paula, and Randy?
So I had Randy, Jennifer Lopez, Steven Tyler. Those were my judges. Okay. And so not everyone, no. It's like very, very curated. So it was like, you auditioned the cattle call for like producers, PAs, sort
Right, I
of.
figured
They're like
it was
either
like
you're good or you're so bad it's funny. Those were the two people who like went and then would go through various producer rounds. And while you're going through those rounds, they're essentially casting and trying to like come up with your story. So it's not even really about your talent. It's like, where do we want this season to go? We had a country winner last year, so we're gonna go in more of like a pop direction. We had a black winner last year, so we're gonna go with like a white woman. We had a white woman, you know. So it's like,
oh my
they're
gosh,
trying to play all those
crush
puzzles.
my dreams. I was literally calling in. I thought I got Ruben Studdard to win.
You
like,
do. I think at a certain point you do, but for the most part you don't.
Yeah, I think there was a little more, just a little more integrity back in the day when it was like 2003, 4.
Yes, that was my first concert.
Really?
Was the American Idol tour with Kelly Clarkson.
Stop. Did you ever watch From Justin to Kelly?
Of course.
Okay, good.
Of course.
So we're officially best friends.
On repeat.
And you know the dance.
I know. Well, the one that's burned into my mind the most is the nightclub scene.
Oh my gosh.
With the blonde girl who sabotages Kelly in the end. That scene, that was my gay awakening. I was like, she is so fabulous.
Yeah.
I could never have sex with her. I want to be her.
Wow.
You are my idol, ma'am. Catherine Bayless, I think is her name. I think I still remember the actor's name.
Wow.
Because it was like burned. I loved that movie.
That's incredible.
So good.
No, I literally wore the hell out of that movie.
Yes.
I thought I was going to be on American Idol, but all I got was I was voted most likely to be on American Idol. So I'll take it.
That sounds like a win.
7th grade. Look it up in the yearbooks.
Can you sing?
I used to.
Can you sing right now?
No.
You thought about it, and I want to just go back to that moment and pull you back and say yes.
I gotta leave like a little bit of mystery on the internet.
Why?
Why? I've just pimped myself out too much.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe we do a duet one day.
Please, pimps and hoes are the oldest American establishment. Like, be
because you know how every creator has like the pipeline from creating to singer.
Yes.
They all just become little singers one day.
Yes.
And I think we actually deserve to do that.
I'm sitting here open and ready. I'm literally ready and willing. I'm literally asking you to start a business with me. Like,
I'm in.
So whenever you're ready.
But yeah, so let's go back to what you were talking about with growing up with your parents. This is how I found you, talking about Maga Mommy.
Maga Mommy.
Honestly, she is such a doll.
She's amazing.
I'm like, I get it. Like, you can't not love her. She is just so easy to love. So I feel like you have an exception. I am going to say, like, it's been really hard for me. Now that we are post-election, I'm a bitter bitch. And I'm good with that. For a minute, like, Scorpio is really coming out. But yeah, I feel like I have some feelings. And I think, I don't know, Black women are feeling it heavy right now.
Of course.
And I got this baby in my tummy living in Texas. Like, cut me a fucking break, chomp. Yeah. Like, I just need, like, I don't know. And I feel like there's no understanding or empathy, like, when I look out into the internet. Yeah. But I will say the only person that's been able to get through to me in kind of like taking a breath and being like, let me not burn down everything right now and cut off every single person is you. Truly, you might be salvaging like some family members. But I really wanted to talk to you about that because right now I think it's important for us to process. But at the same time, I want to learn, how are you maintaining relationships with people who you feel like could be voting against your well-being?
First of all, I'm like literally trying not to cry. That is so humbling. I'm so touched by that. I think I had a head start. I had a head start.
This isn't new for you.
This isn't new for me.
So when did that start for you? This was like your entire life?
It's 8 or 9. Hearing my parents speak about me in non-affirming ways about like my perspective, sexuality, like the shame that I had received as a child growing up in a conservative Christian home that I'm sure most Christian LGBTQ people experienced. I had to learn that compartmentalization really early. And I'm also really grateful to my experience of being a wild child because I am like this like teenage alcoholic, got DUI, should have gotten DUIs, got out of it because my dad's a cop and I use that card very often. But I was getting into trouble. You know, I was like a bad boy, got kicked out of schools, like was just used to not being in my parents' favor. So when I learned to stop living for their blessing and their benefit, I was able to apply that to multiple scenarios. I think a lot of people are grieving the worthy and justifiable expectation that the people who brought us into this world, the people that we are supposed to be the closest to, could somehow betray us, right? Like there's a processing time that goes into that.
Yeah.
Mine was able to come many years ago, and it wasn't even really about politics. And so I think and there's no shade to that because I also have a part in the situation as well. I was not the perfect child. I did a lot of stuff that I've had to apologize to them for as well, right? Like it's not a one-sided beef. There's no beef because my parents and I have forgiven each other.
Yeah. And
so when it comes to politics, I think that I talked about this in a podcast episode of my own where I'd interviewed my mom, and the interview mostly went more so towards just like understanding the mind of a Black conservative. But upon reflection, I was like, oh, this didn't actually offer anyone tools on like how to accept someone being a Black conservative. And so I made a follow-up episode of my own, and I was talking about it where I was like, I learned to stop expecting my parents to be someone they can't. And when I remove the expectation of their perfection, it allows me to forgive them for thinking differently than I do. Because my parents were Republican before even my eldest brother was born. I'm not changing their minds.
Yeah.
And it's not a good use of my time to sit here banging on my head, being like, why God, why? Like, why wouldn't you give me these perfect, it's like, and I'm now discounting the ways in which they do show up, right? Like my mom bought my ex-boyfriend this like beautiful little bolo tie for Christmas last year. This is the same woman who was like, I don't want to meet your boyfriends, blah, 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 blah. Like,
so that wasn't like automatically an accepted thing.
No, not at all. And so like, I have to acknowledge what I am getting. You know, and I stopped. It's very similar to what we hear in the like polyamorous community of like, you don't need everything from one person. I apply that to my parents. I don't need everything from my parents. I don't need them to affirm every single aspect of my life for me to feel valid within it. I stopped giving them that much control over me. And that was important for me, again, as this like bad boy, where I was like, hey, yeah, I fucked up when I was a kid, but also like, you did too. You did too. And so like, how about we like call this one a wash and let's just like be friends. I'm friends with my parents. And so because I'm able to be like, you're crazy and like joke about it and like not expect that, not have the conversation with the expectation or intention of change, but rather just truly accept that we speak in different definitions. You know, like my parents, what I would say is, oh, that's racist, that's transphobic, that's xenophobic, it's homophobic. They're like, well, you believe in abortion, so you're a murderer. And when I'm like, oh, when I validate your worldview and validate that you believe that, I don't agree, but I can accept that you believe it. And so when I accept that you believe something differently than I, it completely alters where I expect their responses to go. Because I'm like, why would I plant a pumpkin and expect a pineapple? That's not how plants and vegetables work, but you get what I'm saying. Like, why would I plant one fruit and expect a vegetable? Right. I have to be like, oh yeah, that's a Republican plant. It's gonna grow into a Confederate flag. Like that's And so when I'm able to sort of not, I had to stop letting my heart continue to be broken. By it.
Yeah. And I think, I guess what a lot of people are, for the first time, they're getting their heart broken. Right. And whereas that started for you at a very young age, where you got to a point where you're like, I'm gonna build a wall here so that you can't do that to me anymore.
Right. And so it takes time. I would say it takes time to everyone who's going through their first or the most egregious parental heartbreak. It takes time. I went through periods of not speaking to my parents for different reasons. I've gone through those times. What I've realized was my dad got cancer when it was like 2020. So it was like peak Trump Biden, like we're on COVID, haven't seen them in a while. And they were like, hey, dad's going into surgery. And I was like, I think I can't give a fuck about this anymore. I kind of think this isn't that important anymore. Like, sorry, liberals. Sorry, that's my dad. Sorry, I do believe that is my father. I'm gonna have to call him. Gonna call. And it was this really, and like, thank God my dad's cancer free, but it was this thing where it was able to give me perspective on like, do I owe other people sabotaging my relationship with my father and my mom?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Or can I find a way to manage what I need from them?
Yeah.
And go to them for what I need, the family unit, and then go to other places for validity, you know, over like my sexuality, my life, how I live. I don't need my parents to validate me anymore in that way.
It's really big of you, I will say. I guess I'm learning so much from you, especially as it comes to, you're a very compassionate person. And I really love that.
Well, because I was a fuck up. I received so much compassion.
Okay, so
I received so much grace.
I see.
That I can't, I would feel like a thief if I couldn't offer it back. I've been held and been offered so much forgiveness.
And was that from your parents?
From my parents, from the law, from schools, from friends, from my siblings, from partners.
This is just like
from everyone.
What you're reciprocating into
when
the
I
world.
got sober, I had to make a lot of amends. There were over 100 people on my amends list.
Oh.
And about 75 of them said yes.
Wow.
25 were like, don't talk to me ever again. And literally only 2 of them were like, hey, you did something wrong. I do, like, usually it was like, oh my God, Horace, like, I'm just so happy you're sober.
Yeah.
And like 2 of them were like, no, you really need to work on this thing. But by and large, I had been given so much.
A lot of grace.
So much grace.
Yeah. And this is like nuts because I know nothing about your past. And I'm like, what? Like 100 people you had to like apologize to? Honey, where are the handcuffs?
Bad boy. There's photos of me in them.
But so if it's not crossing any lines for you, why did you go sober?
I am an alcoholic.
Just let's put it out there.
I drink to die. It's in my family. Like, I am like, just can't drink. I can drink. I can't drink without ruining your party.
We're not getting tipsy.
We're not getting tipsy. We're getting arrested. So it's just not a thing that ever really worked in my life. From the time I started drinking at like 16. And I got like 17, 18 is when I started like really going hard. And then I got sober at 26. And so it was, to some people, they're like, 26 is so young. And I felt so old. By the time I got sober, I was like crusty. I blew up my whole, for example, again, I'm an open book. I'll tell you anything. Like when 2 days before I got sober, my family didn't come to a show I was performing in. And I was like, you're all cunts in the group chat. I literally cursed out my entire family.
Not the cunts.
Left the group chat. Didn't talk to them for like 9 months.
No.
So
9 months?
9 months. Until I started getting sober. And like, the only person I talked to is my dad.
Wow.
So I didn't talk to my entire family because I was so hurt, but so embarrassed.
Yeah.
And it caused such a big issue. And they all forgave me. They all forgave me. And so it wasn't even about, so this compassion that you speak of, it isn't even directly owed to like Bria. It's like Bria gave me the example of compassion. And that gift that has been given to me, I now get to apply to others. It doesn't have to be a one-on-one, like, cups pouring back into each other. It's like, really, I've been so touched by just like the general state of compassion I've received in my lifespan that I cannot help but offer it to the confused Democrat or the unsure moderate to Republican person who's like, I don't really know, but like, you guys kind of scared. Like, I understand so much nuance from my childhood, but then received so much compassion from my like teenage to adult years that now I'm able to sit in these spaces and be like, oh, everyone's just terrified.
Yeah.
Literally everyone.
I mean, hearing you say that, I can see how you would have such a zoomed out picture of like what's going on with the election. And it makes it so much easier because I'm like watching videos. I'm like, well, how do you do this? Like, I'm not there. But hearing you say that makes so much sense. Like, it's, I guess, the acts of people continually like giving you that gift that help you grow. And maybe I played it safe. So, and I do feel like I don't really take accountability all the time when I feel like I do hurt people. So I think that's where it starts with me in terms of learning how to be more compassionate. Like, I got to start being accountable, which you've done, which is really cool. So how do you get yourself to a place of like humbling yourself enough to be like, hey, I fucked up?
It is luckily something at this point that is become second nature.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning of practicing, what I would call like being other-centered, it's, I think, the ability to sort of write it out and be like, oh, I did this, that, and that. Like, also, I guess the elephant in the room I'm keeping is I work a 12-step program. And so a lot of our writing in the 12-step program is like, what did you do?
Okay.
What did you do?
Yeah.
And sure, that happened and that happened, but like, you were also a part of that. Not everything happens to me. Not everything, like, I am not the main character of every tragedy I'm involved in.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not the like protagonist of every like, sometimes you did some shit too, bitch.
Yeah.
And like, it takes real, like, I don't even want to say accountability as much as just like an inventory of just like looking at it and being like, this, yes, but like, where did I, for example, a friend of mine has been mistreating me for a long time, and I one day blew up on them in a way that was justified, right? My part might be that I stayed in that relationship, knowing that person was not my person.
Yeah,
so
there was still some
that,
kind of involvement.
I let it get that far.
Right.
Because I knew for a long time that you were not my person. And so by the time I blew up on you, yes, it felt justified, but I let it go too far.
Yes.
I could have nipped that in the bud and been like, hey, this relationship isn't working for me anymore. But because I stayed, that's on me.
Yeah.
And so it's, I think the practice that we learn in this program is like being able to see that, like, I am the common denominator of all these situations.
There's deep accountability.
There's deep accountability
being done. And not a lot of people ever even touch the surface.
Because it's easier to not. And I think in this day and age with social media, I think what's happening in our world, and I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to like start to talk about this, but it's like we're being conditioned into this like really deep dichotomy structure of like block, follow, comment, delete, lover, like fan, hater, like, it's black and white.
And it's not realistic.
It's just, there's nowhere in the real world where such a stark duality is expected of us. Most, I would say 99.9% of situations, like even a murderer in real life has some redeemable quality about them.
Right.
Someone in the world, that murderer is like, oh my God, that was my best friend. I love that guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, nothing is as clean and cut as we say it is online.
Yeah.
And so I think that like that's been a lot of my personal approach coming onto the internet is like, it's fucking gray.
Yeah.
It's so gray. And it's important for us to feel that because I have been saved by that gray. That gray has saved my life.
Yeah.
And so it is really important, I think, that in this time, especially just relating back to politics, right? Like in this two-party system, Republican, Democrat, blue, red, Trump, Harris. And it's like, there's actually so many people who do not fit within this paradigm.
Yeah.
And we're forced to erase the rest of the gray to fit into this structure.
Yeah.
And then we say, well, if you're on that side, you adopt every single aspect of it. And I'll start with the left. If you vote for Kamala Harris, you support genocide. And it's like, well, I mean, actually, I support abortion rights and $25,000 first-time homebuyer credit. Like, that's really what I'm voting for. But like, okay. And it's like, okay, well, if you vote for Trump, you are a homophobe. And it's like, well, actually, like I am a homeowner in a red state and I haven't been messaged to properly. And so I believe that Donald Trump is the better idea for an economy. Like, I don't actually stand for every single thing he says, but like, these things are lumped in together and I don't have a choice. And our structure doesn't allow for a third, fourth, fifth party to come in and really represent people, right? And so we are being conditioned into removing all compassion and removing any nuance and removing any grace around such a broad stroke that is a two-party electoral system. And we say if you fit on either side of the swing, you are every single aspect of what that party and that platform represents.
Yeah.
And we erase all humanity and all nuance and all intricacies when we as human beings are innately and like weird and unique. So to say that like I cannot have grace for your humanity, but then expect you to have it for me is where I feel like a thief. And I'm like, hold on.
No, that's fair.
We gotta cool it.
That's fair. So, okay. I want to particularly ask through the lens of, because I have a very big audience of Black women
Love
who I know are feeling it. what
Does
would
that
you
hurt your
say?
fingers? Because it hurts my. We're doing for those who are listening on audio. We're doing the Gen Z heart. It's never not felt like carpal tunnel.
It's not easy.
It's never not hurt.
But what would you say we could do to take like our first 3 steps in moving forward here? Not just with ourselves and this grieving process, but also with people who we feel betrayed by in our personal lives. Like the holidays are coming up. And I know we're going to be faced with, do I want to be in a room with these people right now? You know, I mean, I'm even feeling that to a certain degree. So what could my next immediate steps be? Because I hear what you're saying and I really do resonate with it a lot. I just know it's going to take me a lot.
For sure.
Quite some time.
For sure.
But in the meantime, what can I do?
To the Black woman listening to this, first thing I would say is remember that I am a man. Y'all do. Listen to each other. First and foremost, because y'all know your experience way better than me. I have 4 sisters. I love and am designed and owe all of who I am to Black women, but I am a man. So I want to say that first and foremost I'm not mansplaining any of this to you, but I trust you more than I trust myself. But I would say to the Black woman, to really anyone who's feeling just like misled and unsure of how to proceed, but particularly to Black women, y'all don't owe these motherfuckers conversations. Y'all do not have to have a conversation you don't want to. You do not owe anyone time, energy, mental allocation. You can get up quietly from the table and go sit in another room. You can say, I'm uninterested in this conversation. You do not have to engage. So many people will be embarrassed to look at you because they will know that you did your part and they will want to either have you placate their feelings or antagonize you to get either their own consciences cleared or to poke the bear and wake up the stereotypical Black woman. Someone's going to poke your shit. So you don't have to engage. That's the first thing I would say. Second thing I would say is if you want to engage, there again, this kind of extends to the second part. It's like, I think that there are going to be so many people who want to clear their consciences on you, you know, and that doesn't have to happen. So boundaries, so many boundaries. And then if there are people, I would say this is the third thing. If there are people that you're disappointed in and you want to engage, it's very difficult. I think I personally have a very limited bandwidth for who I offer that acceptance to. I sort of have it on like a need to know basis. It's sort of like mom and dad, I'm with y'all regardless.
Yes.
I'm not really super generous with.
And that's something I wanted to see, like, there's levels to this,
There's
right?
levels to
Like,
this.
obviously it's harder with family, you know? So when it comes to like maybe friends, and then you have like coworkers, whatever. What does that look like for you?
As far as friends go, I take the word friend very seriously. If I'm asking for advice that pertains to my life, but I know that you didn't vote for my life, then you are not qualified to advise on my life. And unfortunately, that does extend back into my parents. I don't go to my parents for life advice. I give my parents updates. I tell them what I'm doing. I tell them what I did, but I don't ask their opinions.
I see.
Because I know that structurally, we don't see the world the same way. So I'm not super intrigued on how you see the world because I know that we don't see the same, girl.
Yeah.
So I don't really need your career advice or your advice on relationships. With friends, it's harder to, I think, seek counsel because a lot of the time my friends are my reprieve from my family.
Yeah.
My friends are who I go to and say, oh my God, I can't believe that like my mom is doing this. Oh my God, I can't believe that my parents think this way. Like I vent to my friends. I cry to my friends. I let the layer down with my friends. So if I were to find out that friend was actually an op who voted for me and you to not feel safe in this country, you're not a friend anymore.
Yeah.
How could I feel safe going to the op, dog?
Absolutely.
Like, I'm sorry, but like there is levels to this shit. And if you are not advocating for my gay Black ass life and my trans friends' lives and my non-binary friends' lives and like my female friends' lives, like it's hard for me to feel that you were like really worthy of my vulnerability because I'm on paper not safe with you.
Right.
So it is a little bit more difficult to maintain those friendships. And I won't even lie and say that I have Republican friends.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have Republican friends because I don't think that I could really exist within the vastness of what that word means to me.
Right.
With someone who didn't see my life worth defending.
Yeah, it's very conflicting. And I kind of said, like, when I was going off in my stories, I was like, I don't have the capacity to nurture a relationship where someone does not value my life. And I think that is like the bare minimum out of a friendship.
100%.
Do I expect it from my coworkers? No. That's why when I was in the corporate space, I wouldn't try to hang out with people after work. You know what I mean? A few exceptions, but like, you know, there's lines and there's boundaries, and you have to figure out who your safe people are.
Right.
And I think people are just now kind of clocking it, and that's what's scary. And it's a grieving process.
Right.
Like,
and
that's what it is.
There are acquaintances I have where I'm like, sure, I can practice the sort of like compartmentalization from my parents, you know, for the sake of like the greater at large friend group. But I'm not gonna like come to you with like my dead body stories.
Yeah.
You're not getting my like deepest core childhood wounds.
You get the surface level
You
stuff.
get the surface level that any Joe, Dick, and Larry gets. And like, I can be cool and fine with you because like, I know how to like exist in a world. I'm not going to sit here and like actively start problems with anyone. But like for me, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's disinterest. So if I am like, I'll see you later.
That is tea. That needs to be on a shirt.
You know, like if the less you get from me should tell you exactly where we stand. Because I'm open with pretty much anyone. And if you don't know shit about me, that's on purpose.
Yeah. No, that is tea. That is tea. Okay, guys, story time. So the other day I get a package in the mail, right? And open it, immediately sob, hysterics. Like, I know the pregnancy hormones are very real, but you guys, I was not prepared to see the most adorable baby clothing. And honestly, getting these clothes in the mail is making everything so real that there's going to be a little baby boy bestie running around here soon. So I've been a mess, to say the least, and Riley and crew are to blame for this because their pieces are just so cute. So the Riley and Crew Collective, if you haven't heard of them, is a unique modern clothing company for children and moms. Each collection features hand-drawn illustrations paired with beautiful muted tones and timeless design. Riley and Crew caters to every stage of your child's life, whether that's welcoming the newest member of your family in Quincy May, dressing your child in Riley Crew for the first day of school, or celebrating any occasion in Nora Lee. And to top it off, the pieces are ethically made with organic materials. So I'm just so excited to style my baby in these clothing pieces because you guys, they're so stinking cute. But if you'd like to get some pieces yourself, you can visit rileyandcrew.com/becauseilove and use code BCILY at checkout for 15% off your first purchase. That's RYLEEANDCRU.com/becauseilove and use code BCILY for 15% off your first purchase. So I'm kind of like backtracking a little bit, but I want to go more into your relationship with your parents. So kind of going back, I was, of course, stalking you because I'm obsessed. Were you a pastor's kid?
I was.
Me too.
I was. Assistant pastor.
Yeah.
Assistant
I feel like we
pastor.
have a lot of parallels with that.
What denomination did you grow up in?
I was non-denominational.
Okay.
So we were a little more, you know.
We were hellfire and brimstone, baby.
We were having a party in there.
We were eternal like a fire. We were, the Antichrist is coming down. The rapture's coming tomorrow. Every day since I was 3 years old, it's been coming tomorrow.
Since you were 3. So is that when you were a pastor's kid, like when you were super, super young?
I was born in like my birth was in the bulletin.
Gotcha. Okay. So mine was like, my dad has lived like 9 lives, and one of his many lives was going into being a pastor.
Wow. How old were you when he became one?
Maybe like 7.
Okay.
So,
and did he stay the rest of your childhood?
It was like maybe until through like junior high, and then it slowed down, and he ended up like serving at the church, not doing pastor stuff anymore. But the dynamic that it had on our family has always been really interesting.
Wait, tell me more. Are you still religious?
No. I've never said that either. People want to know so bad.
Oh my God, we can cut it.
No, it's okay. I'm good with that because it's my truth. You know, I feel like I'm very spiritual. But I'm just not religious. I believe in God. But I think there were so many contradictions and so many
Speak on it.
You know, and I'm not talking about just my dad's involvement with the church at all. Church as a whole, like what I experienced my entire life, I felt like there were just some performative parts of it. It always felt not natural to me. And that I would ask questions about things in the Bible, and that's just the way God wants it to be. I'm like, no, can you give me an answer with logic and like facts? That's the kind of gal I was growing up, and it didn't work.
The church doesn't love questions.
No, not at all. And I quickly learned that. And even just like the rapture stuff and everything, like, first of all, my first time hearing that was like when I was like 6, 5 or whatever. I took that so literal.
Terrifying.
I'm like, how many heads is he gonna have? Like,
so scary.
That is crazy. And why are you guys reading me this like a bedtime story? I'm 5. Like,
straight up.
Calm down.
Straight up.
So it's like there wasn't enough context around stuff like that, but I'm like, also, did they understand the context wasn't like so literal in part? Like, I just had so many questions. And the older I got, and of course, like me learning who I am and having friends who were queer or whatever, what really did it for me was one of my friends in high school. He was like my first gay friend, and this is in Texas, so we didn't have many, but he told me, and this was like in 10th grade, he was like, oh, well, I just like this, I went and got an exorcism. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, I got the devil out of me. And I said, what do you mean you got the devil out of you? And he was like, well, because I'm gay, I tried to get the devil out of me. And I was like, my friend, you are the furthest thing from that. And that was it for me. That conversation, I was like, anything that could make my best friend feel like he has the devil in him, I can't co-sign it. So that's when I started to deconstruct, right? In like 10th grade, I was still religious, but not to make this about me, by the way. But
I'm fascinated and I have so many parallels with us. Please keep going. Please keep going.
I started to deconstruct it, and it was hard because like, I love my parents. They are so religious that I was like, well, this is hard for me to separate like what's happening because well, this has to be right because my parents said so. But there's something bigger that's telling me there's something wrong. Right. I'm not saying the entire thing is wrong, but something isn't right here. So I really struggled with that. And it wasn't until like my mid-20s where I was like, you know what? I don't know what I am.
And I think that there's this experience of people who grow up with pastoral parents where we're like, is God my mom? Yeah. Like my higher power is like, she's the highest power. My dad is the highest power I can conceive of. And it felt like, I think that what happens a lot for like PKs is like, we can see the contradictions from like the church persona to the home persona. And not that my dad was like a completely different person, but it's like, he's a human being. He's a different guy. And it was also like the main pastor. That's the person who really drove me out. Really? Yeah. Where I was like, you are a hypocrite. My dad is brilliant. My dad has his master's in theology. So he was like really an amazing Bible guy. Yeah. And like was actually a really great example of being of service. Like he was a cop, and like you can say what you want about cops, but he was a dark-skinned black cop, like did his part and was like really protective of people. But it was the contradiction of like, I'm going to hell for being gay, but like the worship leader beat his wife last week. Period. And is in the pulpit this Sunday.
The math isn't mathing.
But I'm going to hell.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I kind of had questions too. Like learning things I wasn't supposed to know, obviously having the insight on like leaders and being like, so
Miko's bullshit.
Miko's bullshit.
Miko's bullshit.
Yeah. And my parents, I love them. I hope they don't watch this, but they had.
And if you do, hello.
We love you.
We love you.
But we're here because we love you. That's the podcast.
Because we love you. That was a great tie back.
Yeah. They had a turbulent, my parents got divorced. Then they got back together. So
did they stay together after that? Oh, cool.
And so I am the only child of the 3 that has seen all the phases. There was a version of them when they had me that was probably the worst version of them. I do think they needed to separate, but there was still a lot to work through in that second round, right? So again, human, but toxic, traumatizing. And I'm like,
Christian?
Church,
right,
Christian.
Right.
And it just felt really, really volatile at home.
Totally.
Right. I'll leave it there. But I contradicted a lot because of that. And I'm the oldest, so I feel like I was putting things together. I'm oldest by a landslide. 9 years from my brother, 14 from my sister.
Goodness gracious. Wow.
So I was putting things together that they weren't able to conceptualize at their young
the
age.
isolation that must be for you to be going through that.
Yeah, and I realize I have like, I get very easily triggered because I would say my siblings are more religious still. They're really young. And I don't knock them for that at all. But like going back into, I don't like being told why I'm not. Because I'm like, you weren't there. You might have been there, but you weren't there.
And I get the same way. I had again, not to plug my podcast, but whatever.
Plug it.
Hardly qualified at the Horace Gold. But
in the show notes.
I had a friend on and we were talking about being gay. So the episode's called God and the Gay Christian.
Yeah.
And she's the same way, pastor's kid, lesbian. And we were talking about it. It's like for queer people who still have even an inch of a relationship with God. It's like, and for people who were pastor's kids and saw all of the like disgusting layers of humanity, people who have like went in the church, right? Like for us to have any relationship with God at all after this, I'm like, I work harder to stay in this than the average Sunday goer.
And are you still religious?
I am Christian with an asterisk. Love Jesus. Hate most Christians.
Yeah.
I have been so traumatized and felt so othered and abandoned by Christians and by the church. And I've been so misled by Christians of like, oh my God, come to small group, come hang out, like let's do life together. We are like, you know,
you're sending me back to like Arkansas where I went to school.
All
oh
of
my
it.
Gosh.
And they're like, and then you like want to like get a leadership position or worship in the choir. And it's like, well, we do. Like,
it's like the love bombing of like
it's the love bombing.
religion.
And then you really, and maybe I'm also triggered by like a lot of the LA churches in particular, but all these like churchella churches, you know, like they will feed you this line, this like hook, line, and sinker of like, oh my God, no, we love you. We are so accepting. Actually, we get all of our funding from Texas Republicans. So you actually cannot serve in the church because you're openly gay. And it happens without fail at every single church. And I'm like, y'all are just the same motherfuckers out here. And it is the same. Like, I've only ever gone to church in LA. Born and raised here, baptized here. Like, my whole religious experience is really in Los Angeles. And I grew up in a Southern Baptist. My pastor's from Texas. And so he was the shouting, hollering, screaming, sweating, giving himself a heart attack type of pastor. It's going to be that was every Sunday.
No.
And then I come to start going to church in LA, and it's like, and I'm going to give you a talk from God where he wants you to know that you are going to hell. Like, it is just like all this shit where you're like, I just was able to see through all of the like routines so easily because I was like, I went to the church camps. I like preached in pastoral competitions as a kid. I was writing original songs and supposed to be this like Christian missionary. I did it. I achieved it. I know what it's like, and y'all are liars. Y'all are hypocrites. I've seen it. So kind of what you were saying about like your siblings, I can experience that a lot with like new Christians.
Yeah.
Or people who have like recently turned their life over to the Lord and are like, I am blah, 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 blah. I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Yes.
Shut the fuck up.
They're like
I know
on
more than
fire.
You, bitch.
And going headfirst into it for the very first time. Yeah, it's...
I'm like, try this shit for 25 years and then tell me that you wouldn't be pissed off too.
And I feel like I'm watching like a train wreck because I'm like, pump the brakes at least.
Literally.
You know? Like, I have someone in my life that I'm very close to that's going through that like...
New vampire energy.
Hardcore, yes. Hardcore religious awakening. And I just... And I had a conversation with him where I was just like, okay, because every time we talk, I'm told I'm going to hell if I don't believe in one truth, the one truth. And I'm like, what the fuck is that, first of all? Because
that's Christian nationalism. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah. And to think that like, you've been bestowed with that one
Bria,
truth is wild.
You're speaking my language.
Yeah. And so much so that you could look a family member in the face and say, I know you're a good person. I've known you your whole life, but you're going to hell.
I had to tell my dad because he was sort of doing the like typical pitch of like, well, if you know, if today was your last day on earth, like, where do you think you would go? And I was like, Dad, I was like, I love you so much. I feel so patronized every single time you bring this up to me because like God and I are good, and I've reached a point. And again, this goes back to my earlier point about like, stop bringing life to my parents. And I had to also set a boundary of like, don't bring it to me either.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm telling you right now, Dad, like, you will never need to know. Like, you are not my God. So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
My God and I are good.
Yeah.
I talk with them all the time. I use non-binary pronouns for my God. My God is not a man. My God does not have a penis. I'm sorry. Like, it's bigger than that. And I actually don't need this from you.
Yeah.
And it pushes me further from you. And I will let you know right now that like, this is a failed way of witnessing. I've done it my whole life. I've been a recipient and a doer of this my whole life.
Yeah.
Save it.
I need to use that.
I'm really not the one. And I feel that way with like just general Christian messaging. And it is this thing where I have the biggest beef with pastors of all. I really find it to be so incredibly self-aggrandizing and self-important to say that you are my one singular conduit to God. How dare you block people from God?
That's a cult
by
leader
saying
mentality.
Right, by saying that like, I need to do it your way is sacrilegious, and actually you are now a false prophet by saying that I can only find God through you in your way. I believe that my God is one universal God who manifests as different things, because if you look at these religions, they're all saying the same shit.
Yes.
Be nice, be kind to other people, don't kill. That's really it, with a couple little trinkets and asterisks here and there. But like, be a good person, do unto others as you would to yourself, take care of the neighbor.
Yeah.
Call it a day.
And that's what I said to this person that, you know, was basically like, you're going to hell. And I'm like, for what? Like, what am I going to hell for? Because you don't believe in the one truth. And I said, okay, so let me ask you this. If you've known me my whole life and you know that I'm a good person, right? And this God that you speak of still wants to send me to hell, and you're good with that. Like, that's your guy? Like, I got questions for that guy. If you're sending people I love that I know are kind, compassionate people who are just doing good, doing the best they can, right? So it's always been like really hard for me, because there's this level where you're talking to people like this where they've completely lost like any logic. It's almost like they're just reciting
literally,
like,
for sure,
something.
100%.
It's robotic
100%.
as fuck. And it's scary because it almost, there's a very thin line with a lot of these group and cults. Seriously.
Have you ever
especially
read Cultish by Amanda Montell?
No.
It's a great book about the language of fanaticism and how Soul Cycle or Heaven's Gate, which is like a death cult, are actually not that far apart. Not for like intentions, but the way that like language can be what makes you in a cult. It's not even about what the cult does, but like how it's very, very fascinating. She's a podcast. She's great.
I need to check that out for sure, because I started to notice it in college. There were literal cults. One of my ex-boyfriends like fell for one, and I would be getting like, I did not communicate with him, but I would be getting like phone calls like, have you heard from him? I'm like, no. Is he alive? Is he good? He's not coming home for Christmas. Like, we don't know where he is.
Oh my goodness.
In a religious cult in Texas, like a big Texas school. I'm not going to say the name, but this is happening in like literal big colleges in the South. And there was a version of it in Arkansas where I went to school where it slowly starts. Like you find kids in college. A lot of us went through an identity crisis, and that's totally normal. You don't know like who you want to be, what you want to do. And they think this is like a crisis. It's not. It's called being young. Well, a lot of churches know this and find them.
100%.
And from there, it's a love bombing. Okay. Then from there, it's, we want you to be like on our leadership board.
Right.
Like,
they empower you.
Yeah. It starts with Bible studies on Wednesdays. Then we're doing Wednesdays and Sundays. Then we're doing Monday, Wednesday, Sunday. And then before you know it, your whole life is dedicated to this church, but you feel purpose.
100%.
And you feel loved. And you have all these people who are giving you attention and validation. So why not lean into that, right?
And then it's like, oh, but it seems like your parents are like kind of, you know, like, I don't know if they have your best interest in heart. I listen to a lot of cult media, by the way. I love the idea of cults. I think that it's fascinating. It's fascinating because everyone wants connection and the reason I love this woman's podcast sounds like a cult is because it's like, not every cult is bad. I'm in the cult of TikTok. I'm in the cult of the gym, right? Like of exercise, right? Like there's not like, no one's going to like come black bag me in the middle of the night because I didn't post on TikTok or I posted too much on TikTok. Like it's not that deep, but everyone, she says in her book, and I find this so profound, like cult is the first 4 letters of the word culture. Everyone has it.
Right.
You know?
It's like, it's just the need to be with community.
A part of something. It's human.
Yeah.
It's human, but And it's measuring that. And I think with regards to the traditional heavy air quotes for audio listeners, non-culty culture, or churches, for the non-culty church, for me, my issue with that sort of like new vampire Christian that I always talk about is I'm like, the church didn't get me sober.
Mm-hmm.
The church is why I drank. I drank because of the character defects put into me from growing up in a religious environment.
Wow.
Not being enough, always being, for all sin and come short of the glory of God. I was like, okay, so I'm doomed. I'll never be enough. Okay, cool. Might as well fucking party. Like, or like, I'm a sinner.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Full send. If I'm a sinner, if I'm worthless, if I'm this awful thing, cool.
Yeah.
Let's run it, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm going to hell, make it faster. Like,
yeah.
It wasn't the church that relieved me of that anxiety and that fear and that self-hatred. And so I can't give the church, and this isn't me talking about Jesus or God.
Right.
I'm talking about the church.
They're very separate experiences.
Very separate experiences. And I feel the closest to God that I've ever felt one-on-one. I prayed in the elevator on my way in here, being like, God, just like speak to me. Let me have a good time. Let me be centered with her.
Yeah.
Like, didn't need to call my pastor. My God has gotten bigger outside of the church, right?
I feel that so deeply.
I used to, it was Tuesdays and Sundays is when I would find God. And now I'm like, I can find God every minute of the day.
Every minute of the day. Yeah. And it's funny, like I've said that similar thing to some of my like more intense friends and families who are Christian. And it was almost like offensive that I said that to them. Because I was like, no, I feel like I am more connected to God than I've ever been now that it's just about the relationship that I have with it. But then that makes, I guess that comes off interpreted as like me putting myself in this divine position to them.
What it does is it forces people to reflect on their relationship with God, because it feels as though the traditionally Christian religious person, the manifestation of their God via the church is often used as a tool of superiority. Of like, for example, someone I know got a call the other day that was like, God told me to call and ask you if you were going to hell. And it's like, okay, that's your God, girl. Like, that's a different God. My God didn't give a shit.
Hang up
like,
on him.
exactly. Like, so it's oftentimes it can be used as this tool of like self-propulsion and superiority and moral superiority and religious superiority, Christian nationalism, all these things we talk about. And it's like, when that's stripped away and these people are then left with like, wait, so what do I have?
Right.
If that person has God, it makes you start to examine parts of yourself that a lot of people aren't really interested in examining.
Yeah.
It's easier to stay in line and be a cog in the machine, and Tuesday, Sunday, fellowship, cool.
And just be a part of the routine.
Right, Bible study, every day, all these things. And then when you're like, no, I actually like have a different conception of that.
Yeah.
And we talk about this a lot in my 12-step program. Like, we come to believe in a power of our own God, a conception, a God of our understanding. And my friend, who's also sober group Christian, they talk about like, for a long time, they were believing in their parents' conception of God.
Ooh.
You know? And
a lot of us do that.
And I felt that.
Yeah.
My parents, I believed in their conception of God. Sometimes my parents were my conception of God.
Yes.
Because I was so afraid of them.
Yes.
That they were the closest thing that I could relate to of this like all being omnipotent force.
They're supposed to know better.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, but it wasn't until I was able to like talk to my God and be like, hey, it's you and me here. And that God talked back to me in a way that I was like, whoa, now I'm like spiritual.
Yes.
And that was like many, many years later, sober as fuck, sitting here being like, holy shit, I'm like talking to God right now. And it felt like this like amazing, like caveman moment of like me and the moon and like man make fire, like we are like, it just was crazy.
Was that like a moment of like, what would you say you were doing, like meditation or just trying to have that conversation?
A lot of prayer. God speaks to me through numbers.
Okay.
So I'll see the same number, and I've seen the same number for like 10 years now. And so it's like it's the number 117, which is like a weird random number.
That is random.
It's crazy. And then for a long time I thought it was haunting me. And I was like working at a restaurant, and this guy asked me to print out his check. And I wasn't my table at all. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll print it. I print out the check. It's $11.17. And I was like, dude, how random guy, by the way, I have not interacted with this man at all.
Yeah.
And I go up to him and I was like, dude, how weird. I was like, I like see this number everywhere I go. And I swear to God, Bria, he was like possessed by a muse or something. And he looks at me with all of the knowing and he goes, well, it just means you're heading in the right direction. And And it like was this like everything everywhere all at once moment. And like all of the times I'd seen this number and thought it was haunting me and that I was cursed and all this stuff, I was like, it was a sign.
It was a sign
to keep going in that way. And so now when I pray and I'm like, God, give me direction, just like tell me where to go. And the number pops up. I'm like, that's my God.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this moment where I was like moving into a nicer apartment and I was like really nervous and blah, blah, blah. And, like, and it was like and I was praying a lot, being like, God, just show me, make it clear, make it clear.
Yeah.
That's really my like most consistent prayer is like, just make it clear. Mm-hmm. Make it so clear I couldn't deny it if I wanted to. I pray that all the time.
I love that one.
And I was like, just avalanched with like this number, these synchronicities, all these just amazing things where I was like, I literally asked you, not this Christian God, not this hellfire and brimstone God, not like my parents' God, like my God.
Yeah.
I was talking to you saying, hey, can you just let me know that you're here? Because I think you're here. Mm-hmm. And they were like, I'm here, bitch.
Yeah.
And from then on, I like get chills every time I think about it because it was so small and so quiet. And it was so something that, you know, those little synchronicities where you're like, I couldn't explain this to anyone else.
Absolutely.
And they would understand the like gravity of it. Mm-hmm. That's God to me. That is you and your creator.
The undeniable coincidence. I already don't believe in coincidences, but when it's just like so weird, right time, right place, right person, like everything is synced up. And that's kind of what I like teach my followers in a non-conventional way of like, hey, when shit's working out for you and it's just like working out for you, there it is. And that's a version of God for me. Literally this. Like
when
you don't have to force it.
Right.
It's easy. And having that sense of peace, like something feels right about this. That's usually like my indicator. I always look for that, like even in the midst of chaos where I'm like when I was buying a house, so stressful, but there was still like at the center of that peace and everything with the house just worked out. Like we got the last lot that was like perfect with no neighbors in the back. House was going to be ready before we went to have kids. Like it was just checking everything, right? But I'm like, wait, you know, God, are you here with this? Because like I'm the first one in my family to buy a house. Am I doing this right? Like I needed that validation because I didn't know where to get it, right? And at the center of that, it was always like this just little stillness and peace. Even if it was like a millimeter of it, it was there.
And also for anyone listening to this who's like, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in God. Like God is a euphemism. God is a short, like it doesn't, to me, it's higher power, spirit, creator, whatever you need.
Whatever you want to call it.
Like I think I was just talking about this on my TikTok as well. Like a lot of the time, like that faith can also come from just like my own personal track record.
Yeah.
Every single time I've ever been like, oh my God, my life is over. I'm doomed. It's never going to work out. And then you like wake up one day and you like forgot you used to think like that. And I look back and I'm like, you remember when you thought you were going to die? And like, it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
That is faith. That is something to have faith in. That is a spiritual experience of being like, damn, I really survived that shit.
Yeah.
And I'm still here right now during those times where I was the most depressed or the most broke or the most lonely or the most anxious, whatever it might have been. If we've made it out of that phase once, we can trust that it will happen again.
Yeah.
And that is the first little inkling of like how to find a higher power and a little bit of proof that we are like being taken care of.
Yeah,
by
we're being
something.
Looked out for. Yes, by some force. And you can call it whatever you want. I think I love that we're not caught up on the semantics. It's just whatever it is to you in your heart, like go with that. Like that is God. And that's so scary for people to hear. Like I'm not going to look at the comments because I say it to people in my life who are like very, very Christian and they're like, no way, no way. But I can only go off of what has actually worked for me.
And it goes back to what I was saying about like how to accept people after the election or parents after the election or just people in general. It's like, like my mom used to say this thing to me, and I'm sure other Black people out here have heard it, but it's like, if you like it, I love it.
Oh.
You know?
Is that a backhanded thing?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I feel that way now from my end, where I'm like, cool, babe, I don't need it from you.
Yeah.
So like, whatever you want to think is totally okay.
My thing is, can we just go off of the ground rules that whatever you are doing is making you a better person, a kinder person, and a more compassionate person? And if you can check all those boxes and really be honest with yourself.
Well, so the thing that gets murky about that rubric is that goes back to what I was saying earlier about people having different definitions.
Right.
People define those words very differently.
So true.
Because
yeah, the people who are like, you're going to hell, they think they're doing it out of a kindness, period.
You know, so it's like, that's why these like, that's kind of the issue, right? With like, you're racist, you're transphobic from the left, or you're from the right. It's like these words don't land because we have two different dictionaries.
Yeah.
Kind, compassionate, just a good person to a Christian versus to an atheist or whomever, right? Like it's hard for us to really line those up.
No, it's
and
true.
some might say, like, for example, like someone, like I was saying earlier, like someone like texted someone at 5 a.m, be like, "Are you going to hell?" And they thought they were being kind. They thought they were caring about someone's life. And it's like
doing the Lord's work.
Doing the Lord's work, right? And so that's kind of why I've had to, on my end, when something is out of my definition of what is kindness or not, I can look at their intent.
Yeah.
And say, this might not have been how I would have gone about it, but being like, I think we're operating in different definitions right now.
Yep.
And I'm not here to convince you to change your definition, but I'm also not willing to compromise on mine. So I get to like, be like, it ends with me and like, we're good. Don't come for mine. I won't come for yours.
Yeah. Don't do that again.
And that's it, because I'm not going to sit here and expect and offer that I am the like Merriam-Webster of all philosophy and that everyone should just adhere to my definitions. I'm just a human being, college dropout, fuck up alcoholic. I can't tell you how you should see the world, but also don't tell me how I should see the world.
Period.
So we have to hold a little grace for like, we're different people. And that's the line of accepting family. But I do need to find people who see the world the same way in me. And those are my friends. So that's just to like take it back a little bit. Like that is why it's much harder for me personally to hold space for friends who don't see the world the same way as me. Because I'm like, I need you to see the world the same way as me.
You need that. That is like
because
a
I don't have an
requirement
option with my
for your
parents.
friends. Yeah.
I can't fight that.
Yeah.
So like all energy has been allocated to that compartmentalization. But that's about as much as I got. I can't go throughout my whole life not feeling safe with my community.
No, and that's like something we all deserve to feel. And I think right now it's hard because some of us are being gaslit in that we need to like suck it up and just have these relationships with people where it's like, do you even fuck with me?
Right.
Like, I don't want to be sitting there wondering that about you. Now, if you're an acquaintance, whatever. If you're a coworker, whatever. But like you said, a friend, no, I do have expectations for my friends. I can't have expectations like I want for my family because we don't get to choose our family, right? But that's totally fair. And I think people have to remember, like, you don't have to be gaslit into mending those expectations.
And also for those of us who are not showing up for our friends, you don't get to be shitty and then receive the benefits. And again, I don't even want to use such broad language. You don't get to advocate for the detriment of your friends and then expect those friends to stay in your life.
If you know your friends are hurt by what's happening, you got to let them go through that process and hope that they can have space for you eventually, but don't expect it.
And if your friends have offered you a definition of, hey, this is what kindness, compassion, grace looks like for me, you can't defy that definition and then be mad that they were like, no, bitch, this is my definition. And I told you, this is what I expect from my friends. You don't get to, and not even in politics. It's like, imagine you found out your homie was like sandbagging your work opportunities.
Yeah.
And like not advocating for the betterment of their friend.
Yeah, that would be
Would you stay friends with them?
No.
Like across that's a bipartisan issue. Fake friends are a bipartisan fucking issue. Like, would y'all stay friends with people who were like your op in any department?
Yeah.
Apply that to any other department. Would you do that?
No, it's really simple.
It's very, very simple.
It is.
But it requires that self-analyzing.
Yeah. Which you
of like, what is our part? What have I contributed? What is my part? Did I enter in relationships with people who have made their boundaries clear and I am now choosing to defy it, but I'm frustrated that they're consistent with themselves? I'm mad that they stuck to what they told me this relationship was going to be. Yeah. And this is really me pointing out to Republicans who are mad that people are saying they don't want to be friends with you anymore. They told you what the fuck was tea, girl.
Yeah.
And
they were loud about it.
They were loud about it.
So no surprises
shade,
there.
But like, don't be surprised. Exactly.
Yeah. It's just kind of, what it is at this point. But no, this is one of the best conversations. I could talk to you for hours. Literally for hours. Okay. So let everybody know where they can find you. Yes. Plug.
Okay.
Everything.
Okay. Follow me on TikTok at Horace Gold, HoraceGold. Follow my podcast. It is called Hardly Qualified with Horace Gold, where we get into conversations similar to this. I'm hardly qualified to talk about most things, and so it's very fun.
I think you're so qualified.
Stop it, Bria. It's very fun. I'm very, very grateful to have a space to talk about it, and there's more stuff coming with that. But yeah, I'm on the internet. Would love to see you all there. I'm again for the 30th 1,000th time, I am so fucking honored to be here and to like be in your aura and in your space and in your energy. You are so kind. And for anyone wondering, she's so sweet offline. For anyone who's just like, she's so cool. I walked upstairs and we like immediately just started talking. It was like so natural, so fun.
Like the best.
Immediately so I just am so honored to like share this space with you.
Thank you so much. No, seriously, you being here, it was like when I was making my LA list, I was like immediately reach out. Like the stars aligned for us and I'm so happy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, guys, we love you.
This hurts my finger.